I'm Master Chief Mark Hakala. I spent 30 years in the Navy, but I've spent my whole life being intrigued by naval customs, traditions, history, heritage, and uniforms. So I'd like to share some of that enthusiasm with you using some items in my personal collection to get us started. Let's see what's in the sea chest today.
On the east side of Detroit is a building with an absolutely incredible history, the Detroit Naval Armory, also known as the R. Thornton Brodhead Armory. In addition to training Navy and Marine Corps reservists, this building with its huge drill deck was host to public events and sporting events. It would accumulate the most extensive collection of Depression-era art of any building in the state of Michigan. I have quite a few things that deal with the history of this building. October 6, 1930, the Detroit Naval Armory is opened with huge fanfare and festivities. The building had been designed by William Buck Stratton, a noted architect in the area and also a crew member of USS Yosemite. On the facade of the building are 5 Pewabic pottery tiles. This is an art pottery still in existence just up the street, known for its iridescent glazes. Its founder, Mary Chase Perry Stratton, was married to the architect. By the time the building opened, the country was in the midst of a depression, and the state of Michigan didn't earmark all that much money for the upkeep of the building. So Commander Brodhead had to get creative. The drill deck was absolutely gargantuan, so it would be easy to set up bleachers and have public events. On his first run for the White House, Franklin Delano Roosevelt campaigned on that drill deck. But the most common event was boxing matches. In fact, in the fall of 1932, a young fighter, Joseph Barrow, decided he was ready for his first bout. Now, he'd been training in secret, so just to make sure his mother didn't find out what he'd been doing, he dropped his last name and just went with his first and his middle name, Joe Louis. That first fight against Johnny Myler, who had been on the U.S. Olympic boxing team, was an amateur bout scheduled for 3 rounds. In 2 rounds, Joe Louis was knocked down 7 times, and they called the fight. He obviously learned from it because he went on to become the greatest heavyweight fighter of all time and one of the greatest African-American athletes in history. He went on to serve in the Army in World War II and is buried now in Arlington National Cemetery. In addition to the rental income, Commander Brodhead had been tapping into funds available through the Works Progress Administration, one of Roosevelt's initiatives to keep people employed. He'd been using the money for janitorial support, but then he found out that there was a subset program within the WPA, the Federal Art Projects. This was designed to pay artists to put their works inside public buildings. Commander Brodhead had an addition put on up top, the wardroom or the officers' dining area, and it had a long wall with bookcases and a fireplace. He thought murals would be perfect, so he chose a young and promising artist by the name of David Fredenthal. In his young career, Fredenthal had gotten 2 Guggenheim Fellowships, and his works can now be found in 47 museums and other public collections. Fredenthal's figures are very classic to the Depression era. Figures, even at rest, are shown straining, torquing, twisting. It's ironic that when so many people were out of work, the subject of many of these murals was work. Fredenthal did his murals al fresco. He did it right onto wet plaster. In addition to the 5 panels he did surrounding the fireplace, he also did a smaller work in the bar area. In the adjacent mess hall, Brodhead wanted to get some additional murals. His officers weren't too keen on Fredenthal's style, though, and they wanted paintings of ships. When Brodhead approached Fredenthal with this, Fredenthal said, "Painting ships, that's billboard work, it's beneath me." So Brodhead got an additional artist, Edgar Yaeger, who was an accomplished painter. And Brodhead gave photographs of the ships that had either been at Detroit or with one of the Great Lakes Naval Militias. Yaeger's challenge was, in essentially a rectangular room, to paint these ships on the walls and not make it look like it was billboard work. And what he did was ingenious. From each corner, Yaeger put details to give you the illusion that you were standing on the deck of your own ship, looking off to port or starboard at these other ships anchored around you. He even included 2 funnels with mirrors in them to give a little bit more depth to the room. The effect was absolutely fantastic, and his work was hailed by newspaper art critics. In 1975, Yaeger was brought back to touch up his work and Fredenthal's, and he got the opportunity to do something he hadn't done before, sign his work. Each of these painters had crews of assistants working with them. One of them, John Tabaczuk, a Polish immigrant who was also a woodcarver, was asked to do inset wood carvings on the various doors around the building. He ended up doing about 20 of these, but then Brodhead had another idea. Why not have the banister leading from the first deck up to the third deck wardroom carved? This turned into a whole new project for Tabaczuk. This incredibly beautiful, intricate woodwork portraying sea creatures, real and imagined, was just absolutely gorgeous. One of Edgar Yaeger's assistants, Gustav Hildebrand, would get his own project. A key player in the murals had been a Belgian plasterer whose name is lost to history. He was able to lay plaster up perfectly, no holes, and this enabled Hildebrand to carry out his idea, which was to do line drawings of sailors engaged in various maritime activities. You see sailors on guard duty, working the capstan, holystoning the deck, and even on one side there is a small drawing of a cat, because Tom, the Armory's cat, used to come and mooch lunch off of Gustav Hildebrand every day. In 1938, one of the officers came up with a great idea. At the back wall of the drill deck, opposite the front door, they created the entire starboard side of a ship. On this, they included every kind of fitting that would help to train sailors. There were deck fittings, there were deck guns, there was a bridge with a helm, engine order telegraph, a signal bridge. It was incredibly innovative. In 1940, America could see war on the horizon. In order to get ready, every Reserve and National Guard element was recalled to active duty. This would provide a new opportunity for the Armory. Into the huge drill deck were brought bunk beds and lockers, and this was now turned into a bedroom for 500 sailors who were here as one of 2 schools, the Electrician's Mate School and the Diesel School. The school continued to operate all the way to the end of the war. In 1943, a veteran of many decades of service, Captain Brodhead retired. He would stay a member of the Armory Board of Control until 1947, when he passed away. In honor of his decades of faithful service, the state of Michigan officially renamed the building the R. Thornton Brodhead Armory. 1948 was the 50th anniversary of the Spanish-American War, and the surviving veterans of USS Yosemite donated a huge bronze plaque listing the name of the entire crew, and it was surmounted by a wooden carving of the ship. Absolutely gorgeous. Additionally, outside the building, a bas-relief sculpture was put up to honor the service of Edwin Denby. Inside, the building returned to its status as a training facility for reserve personnel. To accommodate many more reservists than before the war, a balcony was put surrounding the drill deck, and offices and classrooms were put on both levels. In addition to classroom instruction, there were also various and sundry training aids. After World War II, training ships would return to Brodhead. Depending on the year, there was typically a surface ship and a submarine. And a dock was built behind the Armory for them to tie up. The first submarine was USS Zero, followed by USS Tamber, and then finally USS Piper. Piper, on its third war patrol, was commanded by Edward L. Beach, author of the famed book and movie Run Silent, Run Deep. The last surface ship was USS Amherst, PCER 853. That's a patrol craft, escort, and rescue. Basically, it was a minesweeper, but they modified the spaces to include more rooms for patients. As we moved closer to the Japanese home islands during World War II, hospital ships just weren't enough to handle all the casualties we were incurring. So these became large sort of ambulances. In 1980, Brodhead was coming up on its 50th anniversary, and plans were made to commemorate that. Pewabic Pottery, just up the street, was commissioned to create some commemorative tiles. A fun run was held. A set of postal first aid covers was issued, depicting the Armory and numerous Detroit ships. Commemorative souvenirs were sold, and a grand ball for 500 people commemorating both the Navy's birthday and Brodhead's birthday was held. Just a few years later, in 1987, the Navy decided to consolidate the resources of the several reserve centers in the area, and one in another city was chosen over Brodhead, and the Navy left the Armory. This left the Marines, Headquarters and Service Company, 1st Battalion, 24th Marines, and the local Sea Cadet Division, James M. Hannon Division, which was the first one in the country, as the only tenants of Brodhead Armory. In 2005, the Marines too left, and the building has been empty ever since. In the intervening years, the Armory has been devastated. The beautiful wood carvings on the banisters, on the doors, every one of them stolen. The wardroom murals have been damaged by water and unstable temperature changes. Yaeger's mess deck murals have likewise been damaged, and they even went into the wall and stole the metal from the funnel to sell as scrap. Not only that, thieves have taken all the handrails from around the building, as well as all the copper pipe. They even stole some structural support material for scrap, and part of the roof collapsed. The Yosemite crew plaque, stolen. And most amazingly, outside, right in view of a major street, thieves stole the bronze sculpture of Edwin Denby to sell for scrap. Temperature change and water have also damaged Gustav Hildebrand's line drawings. The future of Brodhead is now coming down to the wire. The city of Detroit is looking at two possibilities. One, to give it to the Brodhead Armory Preservation Society, which would restore it, establish a home for Sea Cadet units, veterans organizations, educational organizations. And the other, sell it to a company that will destroy the entire back half of the building, all the offices, and turn the site of Joe Louis's first career fight into a parking lot for parade floats. As I wrote the nomination for this building for the National Register of Historic Places in 1993, I can only hope that they make the right decision.
Check back soon for more content. Thanks for watching.